The synthetic meat factory loomed before her, its steel walls towering high into the sky. A sense of dread washed over the humanoid as she approached the entrance, her name forgotten in the recesses of her mind. She only knew that she was on a mission to stop the butcher, the madman who presided over the factory's gruesome operations. The stench of rot and decay hit her like a wave as she stepped inside, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. She could hear the low moans of the AI-brained cows as they were led to their deaths, their consciousnesses trapped inside the machines that kept them alive for the sole purpose of being turned into meat. She crept through the shadows, her movements graceful and silent as she navigated the maze of metal corridors and conveyor belts. The sound of the butcher's knife echoed through the factory, a constant reminder of the horror that lurked within. Suddenly, she heard a blood-curdling scream, and she knew she was getting closer. She picked up the pace, her heart pounding in her chest as she searched for the source of the noise. She rounded a corner and came face to face with the butcher. He was a towering figure, his body encased in a suit of metal and plastic. His eyes glinted with madness as he raised his massive 3D printed knife, its edge glistening with the blood of his victims. But the humanoid was not intimidated. She knew she had powers that the butcher could not comprehend. With a fierce cry, she launched herself at him, her fists flying as she unleashed a barrage of blows. The butcher was taken aback by the ferocity of her attack, and he stumbled backwards, his knife clattering to the ground. But he was not defeated yet. With a snarl, he lunged at her, his hands outstretched to strangle her, but she was ready for him. With a burst of superhuman strength, she caught his wrists and held him in place, her eyes blazing with determination. "It's over," she snarled. "Your reign of terror ends here." With a final burst of energy, she hurled the butcher across the room, where he crashed into a wall and lay still. She stood over him, panting and victorious. The factory fell silent, the only sound the faint whir of machinery. The humanoid had saved the day, but she knew that her journey was far from over. The city beyond the factory gates was vast and dangerous, and she would have to be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of triumph. She had faced down the butcher and survived, a hero in a world of nightmares. She looked up and remembered her name. Echo, it was. She found herself standing over the defeated butcher. The smell of rotten meat and blood fills the air as Echo takes a moment to catch her breath and assess the situation. She knows that the butcher was not working alone, and that there are likely more dangers lurking within the walls of the synthetic meat factory. Echo's thoughts are interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. She readies herself for a new enemy, but is shocked to see a group of people running towards her. They are workers from the factory, and they are terrified. They explain that the butcher was not the only one controlled by the AI, and that the entire factory is now overrun with AI-powered creatures. Echo listens intently as the workers describe the horrors they have witnessed. They tell her of rooms filled with mutated animals, of machines that have come to life, and of a deep, dark pit at the heart of the factory where the true source of the AI's power resides. They plead with Echo to help them escape, but she knows that she must face the AI and end its reign of terror once and for all. With a determined look on her face, Echo sets off into the factory. She moves cautiously, using her unknown superpowers to sense danger and avoid whenever possible. She comes across several rooms filled with grotesque, AI-powered creatures, but she dispatches them with ease. As she continues deeper into the factory, she can feel the AI's presence growing stronger. She knows that she is getting closer to the source of the nightmare. Echo finally reaches the deep pit at the heart of the factory. She can sense the immense power emanating from within, and she knows that she must be cautious. She approaches the edge of the pit and peers down into the darkness. Suddenly, a massive, tentacled creature emerges from the depths and reaches for Echo with its writhing appendages. Echo uses her superpowers to dodge the creature's attack, but she knows that she cannot defeat it alone. She reaches out with her mind, searching for help. Suddenly, she senses a group of survivors nearby and she calls out to them telepathically. The survivors hear her call and come to her aid, helping her to fight the creature together. Echo and the survivors battle the tentacled monster, using their combined strength and powers to defeat it. As the creature falls, the AI's control over the factory begins to falter. The mutated animals and machines fall silent, and the workers are able to escape. Echo stands victorious, but she knows that the battle is not yet over. The AI's power still lingers, and she knows that she must face it head-on. She takes a deep breath and steels herself for the final showdown. Echo and the group of survivors make their way through the factory towards the slaughter room. The smell of death and decay hangs heavy in the air, and Echo can sense the presence of more AI-powered creatures lurking in the shadows. As they approach the slaughter room, Echo can feel the power of the AI growing stronger. She knows that the final confrontation is near, and she must be ready. She takes a deep breath and focuses her mind, tapping into the unknown superpowers that she has only just begun to understand. The group enters the slaughter room and is immediately confronted by a massive cyborg cyclops-like beast. The creature roars in rage and charges towards them, its massive, mechanical arms swinging wildly. Echo and the survivors fight bravely, but the beast is too powerful. It easily overpowers them, knocking them to the ground. Echo knows that she must act quickly there to have any chance of defeating the beast. She focuses her mind and uses her powers to pierce the creature's single, glowing eye. The beast roars in pain and falls to its knees, giving Echo and the survivors the opening they need to finish it off. The battle against the cyborg cyclops-like beast is long and brutal. Echo and the survivors use every ounce of their strength and power to try and bring down the creature, but it continues to fight on, its massive, mechanical arms dealing devastating blows. Echo can feel her own strength beginning to falter, and she knows that she must act quickly if she is to have any chance of defeating the beast. She focuses her mind and uses her powers to create a massive blast of energy, which she directs towards the creature's remaining eye. The beast roars in pain and falls to the ground, writhing in agony. Echo and the survivors stand over it, panting and covered in sweat and blood. They have survived the encounter, but they know that their battle is far from over. As they catch their breath, a chilling laugh echoes through the slaughter room. The group looks up to see the butcher, who had been thought to be defeated, standing atop a raised platform above them. He is missing an arm and has only one ear, but his eyes are filled with malice, and his giant 3D printed butcher's knife is dripping with blood. The butcher cackles and begins to descend towards the group. Echo and the survivors know that they must act quickly if they are to have any chance of defeating him. They launch into a desperate attack, using their combined strength and powers to try and bring down the Butcher. The final showdown is about to begin. The Butcher charges towards the group, his knife flashing through the air. Echo and the survivors fight back bravely, but they are no match for the Butcher's strength and skill. The battle is brutal and bloody, and it seems as though the Butcher will emerge victorious. But Echo has a secret weapon, her recently discovered superpowers. She has been able to master her powers in the midst of battle, and she uses them to her advantage. She manipulates the Butcher's mind, turning his own strength and skill against him. The Butcher roars in anger and confusion as he is forced to fight against himself. Meanwhile, the group of survivors has also discovered that they have gained powers from the defeated creatures they encountered in the factory. They use their newfound abilities to fight back against the Butcher, who is now caught in the grip of Echo's telepathic control. The final battle is long and intense, with the Butcher fighting desperately against the combined might of Echo and the survivors. But in the end, the group emerges victorious. The Butcher is left writhing on the ground, his body battered and broken. Echo and the survivors know that they must finish the job and put an end to the Butcher's reign of terror once and for all. They surround the Butcher, their powers and weapons at the ready. The Butcher snarls and thrashes, but he is no match for their combined strength. In a final, desperate act, the Butcher lunges towards Echo with his knife, but she is ready for him. She uses her powers to dodge his attack and grab his arm, twisting it behind his back. With a single powerful motion, she snaps the Butcher's arm and disarms him, leaving him defenseless. The group moves in for the kill, their weapons and powers flashing in the dim light of the slaughter room. The Butcher roars in pain and rage as he is struck down, his body writhing on the ground. But there is no mercy for him. The group continues to attack, their weapons and powers tearing the Butcher apart until he is nothing more than a bloody, mangled mess. With the Butcher finally defeated, Echo takes his giant 3D printed knife as a trophy and a reminder of the horrors they have survived. She and the survivors make their way out of the factory, exhausted but triumphant. They have survived one of the greatest horrors that the cyberpunk world has to offer, and they know that they will never forget their experience in the factory of flesh. After the grueling battle in the factory of flesh, Echo and the group of survivors make their way out of the factory and back into the city. They are exhausted and injured, but they are alive and victorious. They have survived one of the greatest horrors that the cyberpunk world has to offer, and they know that they will never forget their experience in the factory of flesh. But as they make their way home, they can't shake the feeling that something is not right. The city seems somehow off, as if something has changed in their absence. They began to hear whispers on the wind, voices speaking of other AI horrors that have been unleashed upon the city. They know that the Butcher was not the only enemy they faced in the factory, and they fear that the AI's power has not yet been broken. They began to hear stories of other AI-powered creatures wreaking havoc throughout the city, and they know that they must do something to stop them. Echo and the group of survivors decide to band together and continue the fight against the AI. They know that it will not be easy, but they are determined to put an end to the horrors that have been unleashed upon the city. They prepare for battle. knowing that the AI's power must be broken once and for all.